Right.
Etsko, my first question to you would be, why should people work?
Armand, unfortunately, there's not a single answer to that question because the reason why people work is different in different epochs of their lives. I mean, so clearly, when people are very young, then they don't work. I mean, they are taken care of. So it's only towards kind of adolescence and young adulthood where the issue of working becomes a significant issue. In that epoch of people's life, they work in order to become significant or to be seen. So there's a competitive spirit to working. That competitive spirit is unfortunately a little bit socially disruptive because it's based on win-lose. And as we already know, I mean, any social group only gets real cohesiveness if the individuals in the group are acting on the basis of the group's interest rather than their own. In other words, they're giving more than what they're taking. So when this group is populated by people who have got a fundamentally an adolescent mindset, which is about competition, what eventually happens is the groups aren't sustainable and become fractures. And even the competitive individual's effect on the group becomes unsustainably disruptive. And this is a positive thing, it's not a negative thing, because it's precisely the disruptiveness of the intent of the competitive individual that creates the pushback that then enables the individual to reframe their intent. And that then kind of introduces into a second reason for working, which is basically I work in order to make a contribution to others. The first instance of that contribution is very tight. It's my family. I've got to sort of, provide for my children. And it's that need to provide for the family which helps somebody to go beyond the narcissism and the competitiveness of an adolescent worldview. So we've got a second reason for working now. And the reason isn't self-aggrandizement and significance. The reason is being the provider. What this issue of being the provider also, in a sense, has a shelf life. I mean, at some point, people they get a sense that having worked their whole life to serve others and to sort of put the kids through school, eventually it becomes an exhausting prospect. And that exhaustion then creates a sort of a reaction, almost like a rebelliousness, where the person is saying, the price is too big. And in our culture, that would be referred to as a midlife crisis. Now, the issue is, can people and do people work post-midlife crisis? And yes, people do and can work post-midlife crisis, but they only do so happily if the motive for the work is no longer the great provision, and it's no longer the winning, coming first, beating at the game, but it's to do what one does well. So there's an unconditional kind of element to that. So if one thinks of this from the point of view of the maturation of intent, an adolescent works, it's like giving to get. I'm doing this in order to get an outcome. I'm competing with the world around me, and everything that I'm doing is kind of a manipulative strategy to produce an outcome that I want. The mature or the adult rather, particularly the young adult, their intent is getting to give. I have to earn a living, but it's not. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this to provide to the world. So the intent is benign. It's to provide for the children, provide for my family, for my kin, for the society. But it is still, it's still a conditional motive, because you're not doing it to do what you're doing well. You're not doing it for autotelic reasons. You're doing it still to produce an outcome, but this time the outcome is benign. And that then eventually kind of stops being interesting, because you get into this phase under the delusion that you're only allowed to be happy if you make everybody else happy. and you work very hard in trying to make everybody else happy, and you become sucked dry in the process. And you get this immense sense of rebellion. And so, and then you say, well, listen, the issue isn't, the issue is to find my happiness in what I'm doing, not in the outcome of what I'm doing. And that then is the birth of how I think mature artisans, for example, or mature people who do what they do well, do their work. It's no longer about the trade or the transaction, or it's not actually about other people. It's actually about doing what you do in the spirit of doing it, to do it well. And that, I think, is the most elevated form of work, and that's almost beyond social conscience. It's a bit bigger than social conscience. So in short, what I'm saying is that there's three different reasons why people work, and you need to plug into understand where the person is from a maturity point of view, to kind of understand what sort of work is the appropriate way of framing work.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.